So that's stupid. If you think that there is a blissful, happy ending to recovery, you are still using drugs.
Life sucks either way. We just find a way to enjoy the life sucking.
I speak a lot at AA meetings and I speak at other rehabs and I talk to even therapists. I talk to other lawyers too, and in groups. And after I'd been doing that for like 2 years, somebody came up to me with a lot of experience, a lot of sobriety, years of sobriety, and he said, "Hey, you only talked about your wife for like a minute, and she seems to still be there, right? And that like a pretty big part of your life and your kids, but you only talk. Maybe you should talk a little bit more about that." And I was like, "Well, I know, but she's not here. It sounds weird to talk about it." And he's like, "Yeah, there are a lot of people in this program that they need to hear that you're struggling, or what it's like." And that was really weird to me because it's like, don't tell me what to do, asshole. Like, first of all, I only have 4 years and you have 32, so like, I know what I can talk about right now, but like that's all stupid. I wasn't really thinking that, but that's kind of like that was my approach. Is like I was thinking, oh, this is what I can say. This is the type of speech I'm going to give to this AA full of old timers, and this is the speech that I'm going to give to the rehab that are the 30-day program, because this is the stage that they are, and I'll curtail my story because I'm so smart. But like I wasn't listening to people, and here's like a big part of addiction and active addiction is isolation, and it's isolating yourself from not just from your loved ones, but from your connection to your loved ones, because they will still surround you and you will still just cut everything off. And so making those connections again is a very, very difficult part of recovery, or not. So while it's easy to be like, man, I don't need to hang out with that person because I drank with them at the bar every night, so that's not the person I need to hang out with. Like, all right, like A+ for that day at class. Like, you didn't really do anything though, right? You didn't have any major realizations. What is hard is waking up next to the person that you married sober, them sober, and you looking at each other and being like, do I like you? I better, because we're kind of stuck here. And then like you both kind of get up and get on with your day. But I was in a very different situation, because when I did move back into my home, I'd started doing marriage counseling. At some point in marriage counseling, and I'm very candid about it, and my wife and I are very open about it, is that we hated each other. And very few couples get to that point and even consider reconciliation. And there's a lot of reasons that we considered that did not have to do with emotion or affection. But it became something.
Well, I think one of the reasons my life went in this direction is because when I had the opportunity to try to mend things with my ex, I decided not to. Because we were in that I hate you position for a long time. And I give it up to anybody who can stay married, because waking up in the same bed next to the same person that you see every day, I'm not cut for that unless I have a needle in my arm and a stomach full of pills. I don't know how anybody can do it. And at the beginning of recovery, when everybody's trying to rebuild their old lives and get back the exes and get back those jobs, I took a different approach. I was like, I burned that shit to the ground, then covered it in radiation, and then I locked it in an iron dome. Like, there's no going back to that. I destroyed that. And even if I wanted that security of living in that house again, or always having her around, it was better for her and the kid to never see me again. Maybe one day, if things change, that's great. But as much as I wanted to get that, life back and do that drug and alcohol-free Leroy that also didn't exist, I just knew it was better to walk away and start over. And I'm pretty sure that they're doing a lot better today without me than they would have been if I tried to rebuild everything and get it back. But you're in the exact opposite. So.
And that there was no welcome home like I got an ultimatum to come home one time away from the halfway house. Before I left, I stayed in the halfway house for 9 months, and I think it's 6 months. She gave me an ultimatum to come home, and I said no, and she she told me she hired a lawyer to file for divorce, which she did. I didn't. I don't know if she hired. I think she went to a consult, but I didn't care. And not that I didn't care. I was not. I told her I'm not afraid of divorce, and it's not because I'm more familiar with it, I'm comfortable with it, or anything like that. It's still a horrible thing, but like that's the point we were in our relationship. That like I was just wallowing in our misery and of our brokenness, and she was broken as much as I was, and not the same way, but the same broken. And it took her needing to work on herself and me needing to work on myself, and then us trying to figure out if like it's that old adage of like do we really love each other sober? Do we really? Because I'd always been actively drinking our entire relationship, so like who is sober me? And like even my sponsor was like, well, you don't even know sober you, so how do you know sober you is going to like?
Want to
And
stay married?
I'm not being. That's his like soothing voice telling me that like maybe I should consider these things. Not that he's against my wife, but like truly the person that I was, that she was attracted to, I cannot be, because that wasn't me. It wasn't like I was having a drink every once in a while. Like I was, it was a huge part of my personality. So like the recreation of whatever I was, that's the hard part about going to marriage counseling and in reconciliation with a significant other, is that you're not saying I'm sorry for things. You're saying this is me, accept it, and then she has to, and then like whatever, like I'm saying she, because in my case she had to. I didn't give, there wasn't a choice, because, and if she didn't want to keep going to marriage counseling and didn't want to reconcile, that you take that path, right, that you commit to that path, and then I commit to, and then it didn't work. But like there wasn't a period where we sat down and I did, there was some apologies, but there was no like I'm sorry for everything, please take me back. And then there was nothing coming from her side of I'm sorry for everything, please take me back. It was a, this is who I am, and like this is who I am, and like all right, well, let's figure out if that works.
You're basically meeting each other for the first time now
Yeah.
that you're sober.
And well, so and at some point when I moved back into the house, because that wasn't always the plan either, because she's like, let's sell the house, and I was like, I don't give a shit about that fucking house, like, and I burn it to the goddamn ground. I didn't want to get it in the first place, and like I hated that place, which I love my house now, but I hated it then, because it's just full of that, like it's full of the fights and the anger and the yelling and it's just not, it's not good. So the thing is, when we got to the point of me moving back into the home, I wasn't at hate anymore. I'd moved up past a lot into my, because I was 9 months sober, and we had been going to marriage counseling for like 3 months, every single week, and I think she was seeing an individual therapist for some codependency issues, some stuff like that. That at least from my perspective, and I can only speak to this, is that I had been moved past my hate. I had moved past my hate for her. Because it wasn't really hate for her. It was this mix of ball of toxic, festering, horrible shit that was as much a part of me as it was directed at her. But what it was I was indifferent. It did not matter. If she wanted a divorce, fine. If, I knew what that looked like. And, I had a misery index written out. It was like the worst case scenario. And then I also had, like, I was, not at that point, but I had always, had all these, well, if she does this, I'm going to raise the earth, and, all these bullshit plans that never really pan out. But I was more a place of indifference, right? Which is a strange thing for a loving, caring marriage, right? Nobody in a loving, caring marriage, usually you just care, you're in a loving, caring marriage, and then you might stop liking each other a little bit and just lie about it, and then you die. But I didn't. We got to hate each other, which is messed up if you think about it, because we know the ways to really hurt each other. And that doesn't go away. That comes up in fights, right? But then, and then we also got to a place of indifference where, I didn't care about the person I'm supposed to love the most in the world, whether it's my wife or it's the mother or my daughter. So, that part of reconciliation is so difficult, because how do you fix indifference? because it's not that I didn't want to come home. I didn't care if she was there when I got there. So that sucks. Like, that's hard stuff. Those are very, very difficult things. And fortunately, I don't have a lot to, like, I could talk about being a parent maybe another day, but it's that period, because my daughter was so young, she didn't really experience a lot of it. But that relationship forming, it isn't just about, like, I went to rehab, I'm sorry, are we good now? Like, let's fix the car and maybe I won't go to jail. It's like there's a lot that goes into it, and then you live with it, because that same person that my wife she knows the worst of me, and she knows how to be the meanest she can possibly be to me, and what affects me the most, right? And that's terrible. That's something that's a weakness, that vulnerability that's not easy to bear, and I know the same about her. And, like, so you have to, it's a very strange relationship that, like, there's no guarantee, and actually is, I think statistically we're probably, very, very poor odds of continuing to work out. But, like, that's because it takes a lot of work, and
But
at some point,
if you had went back at 6 months, do you think you would still be together and sober?
not no. But nobody did. And what's funny is when I moved back into the house, a bunch of some of her family members were like,
Is he drunk yet?
no, they didn't think, when they, like, I don't know, it's like re-meet me, but they're like, are you gonna stay around? Like, because that whoever I was not the person that they had all expected me to die, but I didn't die. And they had given me so many chances that, like, when I came back, I approached them and life and my wife and my child so differently that, like, it didn't fit into what they were used to. So, like, for them it was like,
Who's this guy?
yeah. Okay, all right, so good. You don't want to miss these, like, little tidbits.
So I always tell people that don't try to rebuild your life too fast. Well, I always tell people don't do anything until you work the steps. Don't get in a relationship. Don't move out. Don't take a new job. Don't try to get your girlfriend back. Don't do any of that stuff until you work your steps. But so many people rush into trying to rebuild their lives, and it just takes them out again.
Yes, every addict that has failed is in a hurry to recover, without exception. Like, I don't know anybody that has rushed to recovery and done well.
It's Blake's house of a lifetime, job of a lifetime, all that stuff. Nobody who's ever left before the 6 months commitment has stayed sober. And he's been doing this for years. And those are all the people rushing to get something done, rushing to recovery.
Because, and from my perspective, it's because our brains are so, my brain at least, and our brains are so, they're sick. Our brains tell us that we have so many different things that we need to do and take care of. Like, I know people that are homeless, jobless, don't have family, wife, kids, nothing, and they are so convinced that they have things, that needs to get done, that they can't stay in the halfway house because they need to take care of things. They can't go to rehab for 30 days because who's going to make their car payment? Like, your car's impounded. Like, there's nothing you need, but your brain is, you are very, very convinced that we convince ourselves that it is real. And, like, that is the undermining, because above all else, our addiction wants us to stay. It wants to defeat us. It is insidious. And a biggest part of that is, look, you can say that things, everything, okay, so my sponsor says it's all part of God's plan. Everything that happens is part of God's plan. So, like, I dropped my keys on the way in here today, and I'm not going to be able to get home, and I have to take an Uber or something because I can't find my keys. Like, that's all part of God's plan. Everything is part of God's plan, which I think is a lazy philosophy. But he's talked to me about it a lot, and I get his. But the approach is a generalization of that things will work out the way they're supposed to, which is also so much easier said than done, right? So, like, I get fired from my job, and I don't know how I'm going to make rent, but I end up, getting a refund check from something that is almost exactly my rent, and then I'm able to pay my rent. Like, that's things working out. But if I don't make my rent, and I don't, and I can't stay in my home, and I end up staying with a friend who, things lead on to other, like, obviously things are going to work out for a reason, right? So it's easy. You're going to find the reason afterwards of why things work out. But the important part of why things are working out for a reason, at least for me, and this I think could be the tidbit of wisdom that I live by, but it's not a key and it's not a silver bullet for any point of success. But I can tell you that the hardest part of my day is inaction, is not reacting to life. And the reason that is so important is because it's the core part of the serenity prayer, that it's accepting things that I cannot change. So when I have to not react, when I don't act out, and I let, whether it's a great higher power, whether it's life, whether it's the matrix, whatever it is, something, or just a theoretical progression of life, my inaction allows me the chance to appreciate when things work out the way they should, or as part of God's plan. So it's not necessary that I believe in that there's a God's plan, or that things should work out things will work out the way they're supposed to be. That's happening. It's whether or not that I can appreciate it, and that I can approach life on the understanding that when certain things happen, I don't have any control over it, and the things that I can change, I'm able to make positive changes in other people's lives. And that's the creation of me. That's the creation of this James without alcohol, that is good. And the rest of all of that other wonderful things in life has just come up organically, because even though that inaction is the hardest thing of every part of my day, which is accepting the things that I can't change, it is absolutely, without a doubt, the most rewarding part.
The whole point of this is just to record absolutely anything and have it be based in recovery. So some idiot sitting in a halfway house, or somebody I know is bored at work, they can tap into what goes on in the insanity of my head and the people in my life and say, hey, there's people as fucked up as I am. And occasionally good stuff comes out. Occasionally somebody talks about fixing marriages and finding God through the Matrix.
Oh yeah, for sure. My marriage isn't fixed. Like, no, we are not. There's no Shangri-La, but there's not for recovery either. So that's stupid. If you think that there is a blissful, happy ending to recovery, you are still using drugs, because there's not. But it's rewarding. Life is unimaginably better, and
you have opportunities, and you can make choices now to continue making it better. When you're using, it's just still going down the toilet, it's still getting burned down, but
yeah,
life sucks either way. We just find a way to enjoy the life sucking. That's the point of recovery.
Well, and yeah, it's all progress, right?
Like, one of the biggest lessons I learned in recovery in my time in the halfway house is when I met you. The first time I went to your house to fix something. You're driving a car, you're a lawyer, you have this nice house, your wife is very attractive. I'd say hot, but that's disrespectful. You know what she looks like. You have a kid, you have everything. From the outside, you have what I always wanted my entire life. And I said, you couldn't stop drinking for all this? If I had all this, I wouldn't stop drinking. And at the time, I really thought that, because I hadn't gone into the book enough and hadn't worked my steps to realize that mental obsession that takes over all of us doesn't matter what the fuck you have. I need to keep drinking. I need to keep drugs. I didn't put two and two together that's the reason why I couldn't have all those things, is because my obsession to use outweighed my obsession to be a husband, to pay the mortgage, to have a nice house. I used to give you shit about, you got all this stuff and you can't stop fucking up. And at the time, I honestly didn't understand. And I think about that all the time when I'm trying to explain it to other people, what a mental obsession, what alcoholism is really about. It's not about somebody says, if you love me, you stop drinking. If you want to keep your job, you stop drinking. It doesn't matter. Once you are an alcoholic, alcohol takes over your ability and your desire to do all those right things. Through me saying you should have stopped drinking to keep all your stuff, it made sense later on. And I use that as an example all the time, because explaining to a normal person Like, why can't my brother stop drinking? We told him to stop drinking. Like, people don't understand. It doesn't work that way. And until you go through your steps and, find out more about alcoholism, like it's in the book, people can't understand that.
Well, because there's nothing in active addiction. Who the fuck wants what they already have? Like, nobody wants that in active addiction.
Well,
nobody's like thankful for whatever they got because it's only about getting the next, right? So that's the way that you're looking at it, though, is that it's not just you have all these things, because you can have this. Yeah, you have all these things, but I don't care about those things. Like, I didn't, because it was the alcohol was more important to me. The chemical dependency part of my life, all of that was, maybe you made decisions to do drugs and you didn't make it to the job in the morning, so you didn't keep the job to be able to buy the car, but like I did. But it doesn't mean that I want the car. Or like those were consequences of just of life kind of falling all over itself, getting to that point. But that's for the tangible, the material shit, because that's for the material stuff. But when you talk about like the wife and the kids and the white picket fence and the ideals and all of those sorts of things, and like specifically that's a big part of recovery. That's actually a really weird part of recovery, is because when you start to when you have some time, you get 90 days or 30 days or whatever, dude, everyone's cheering you on. Everyone loves to love a winner, and they want to be a part of your winning. So you being in recovery is real fun, and like that's great, and you're achieving things, including your family. And like, I promise you that novelty wears off. As soon as it becomes an inconvenience in their life, they don't like it anymore. It sucks. Or if it's not applicable to whatever their topic of discussion is in their coffee group, nobody cares. So you have to be able to be self-sufficient and self-reliant enough in your recovery to be able to survive that. Right now, my wife is very supportive about me doing things in recovery and my friends, but like she doesn't like it because I wasn't there to help put the kids to bed tonight, and one of them's sick, and that's a pain in the ass. And like, it's not that she doesn't want me to do things in recovery or go to meetings, it's just it's easier not to. And even though she knows more than anybody else what the horrible consequences of that could be, what it comes down to is that it has absolutely nothing to do with those people that you should be getting sober for, because they are not going to keep you sober. Just as much as I tell people that I really wish that I was noble enough to get sober for my 1-year-old daughter, and I was noble enough to get sober for my wife, but it had nothing to do with either of those things. And when people tell me that they are so happy that I've been sober for a couple years, and it's a wonderful thing to do for my family, I absolutely 100% did not get sober for my family. I did not put down a drink for my family. I could not stay sober for my family. At some point, I became sober for myself, and part of my selfishness turned the repercussions became selfless to other people and became more focused on my daughter and my family, and it all became a part of my sobriety. But there was never any part of me becoming sober for those things that you say and everyone thinks I should have been sober for, because I'm not that good of a guy.
But now this is the argument I have with people when I'm sitting at Artesian, when I bring in a meeting, and this girl is sitting there telling me, I got to get sober this time, I have 3 kids. And I say, you can't get sober for your kids. You can't stay here 60 days and go home. You need to get sober for yourself, or you will never be there for your kids. You can't say, I'm not drinking anymore because I got 3 kids at home, because guess what that girl did? She did her 60 days, got drunk on the way back to her kids. If you're not doing it for yourself, like you just said, it's not going to work. Just like the people that are forced to go to AA, like you said, it's not going to work. If you're not doing it for yourself, it's not going to work. And you can never be a good husband, a good father, a good worker, a good anything, unless you do it for yourself and fix yourself first. Then after that time, you can go back and possibly be all those things.
Right. When I represented parents who had their children taken away by the Department of Children and Families, and I defended the parents, I did it for long enough that I eventually had a conversation at the very beginning with them, and I'd tell them, look, it's simple. Choose your kids or choose drugs. Start now. Either one. It doesn't matter. Lots of people choose drugs over their kids. They'll figure out every reason possible and justification of why it's not their fault, or why it's okay because the kids will have a better life somewhere else, or because sometimes they just need the judge to take away their kids, but they won't give them up. But the thing is ultimately people will choose drugs over their kids pretty regularly and very freely. I mean, as freely as an addict is, but like that's one of that a misconception that people believe that left up to your own devices, those people, you're right, she's gonna leave Artesian because she thinks that she has to do something for her kids that is really actually has nothing to do with her kids. She just wants to leave Artesian.
I guess the very alcoholic thing is I looked at your stuff and I said, this is nice stuff. I want this stuff.
Weren't you there fixing my stuff? It wasn't that nice. It was fucking broken.
It was the dryer I was fixing cost more than my car. So yes, you have that stuff. But my point was, is we got into a conversation about it, and it shows because of AA.
Isn't that when you met Riley?
So because of working the program, I learned that the never enough thing, that is my alcoholism. That when I take a drink, it's never enough. When I do a drug, it's never enough. When I have a car, it's never enough. I need a new one. And that through our lives now, we see that played out. I work for very rich people sometimes. And those very rich people, they're not rich enough. And they look at the super rich people, and they're like, I need to be like that. A millionaire? No, I need to be a billionaire. And it's funny how so many people in normal life are living like alcoholics, that nothing is ever enough. And if I had that stuff, I would be happy. But to them, they're never happy. And this just goes through all of mankind. People never have enough. Everybody wants more. And that's what keeps people motivated to try to get more. But that is what will kill me today if I start thinking, I need a better car. I need a better job. I need a hotter girlfriend. Whatever it is. That's my...
Do you want to trade your car for my dryer?
My powerlessness over
shit.
Everything is what will take me out. When I focus on making my new car the center of my life, my higher power, when I focus on making money, I need to make more, that because of my higher power, that's what takes me out. And it's funny that I only see things that way now from working this program, and it all started with me thinking you had nice stuff.
Thanks. I do have nice stuff.